Did you know that Niger-Congo people can exhibit a remarkable diversity of skin tones, ranging from fair brown complexions to deep ebony skin and every shade in between? As you know, Aboriginal West Africans, often referred to as Niger-Congo peoples, and their descendants across Africa and throughout the world are frequently associated with black skin. However, the reality is far more complex. This association has little basis in actual human lineages or genetics, as all human populations aboriginal to the tropical regions of the world evolved dark brown to black skin as an adaptation to intense ultraviolet radiation. As a result, many different human lineages indigenous to the tropics develop dark skin independently, including some populations that belong to the same race or lineage as Europeans. This video explores the diversity of skin tones found within the Niger-Congo lineage, a lineage that has often been used to represent the colonial era racial label known as quote-unquote black. And over the past month, I have discussed the origins, history, and diversity of this lineage. And if you're new to my channel, welcome and be sure to check out those videos. But in short, the Niger-Congo lineage is a distinct African lineage closely related to Nilo-Saharan populations, while also sharing deeper ancestral connections with East Africans and ancestral North Africans. This lineage is associated with haplogroup E1b1a and originated in West Africa through allopatric divergence before spreading into Central, Eastern, and Southern Africa through migration, famously known as the Bantu expansion. With such a vast geographic range comes a wide variety of habitats, climates, levels of ultraviolet radiation, and ultimately a broad spectrum of skin tones. Two major factors contribute to this diversity. The first is environmental adaptation, and the second is admixture, or mixing with other populations. The first factor is environment. The main reason our species evolved dark skin is protection against ultraviolet radiation from the sun, especially UVB rays. These rays can damage DNA and cause sunburn, so the body responds by producing melanin through specialized cells called melanocytes inside a melanosome. Melanin acts like a microscopic umbrella, shielding the skin from harmful radiation. Over thousands of years, natural selection favored people with higher concentrations of eumelanin in tropical regions because it reduced skin damage and helped preserve folate, an important nutrient for reproduction and healthy fetal development. This adaptation can still be seen among relatively homogeneous Niger-Congo populations. Groups living in open savannas where the sun is intense throughout the year often develop extremely dark skin tones. In contrast, populations living in cloudy, humid, shaded forest or farther from the equator, such as parts of southern Africa, often develop medium brown complexions. The second major factor is admixture. Throughout history, expanding Niger-Congo populations met, assimilated, and intermarried with neighboring peoples. Some mixed with darker skin groups such as Nilo-Saharan populations, while others mixed with lighter skin groups including the Khoisan, West Eurasians, and East Eurasians. Examples of these can be seen across Africa. Some Southern African Bantu-speaking groups, such as the Xhosa and Southern Sotho, are majority medium brown due to varying degrees of Khoisan ancestry. Similar patterns can be found among Mount Kenya Bantus, Swahili Bantus, Fulanis, and Black Maghrebi peoples due to West Eurasian ancestry. And the same is true about the Malagasis, who are majority Blasians from Austronesian ancestry. Admixture became even more widespread within the Niger-Congo diaspora. Among historic Niger-Congo communities in the Americas, West and South Asia, Niger-Congo descended populations often lived alongside peoples of different ancestries. Through generations of intermarriage, a remarkable variety of blended phenotypes emerged, producing individuals with a broad range of skin tones, many of whom continue to identify and are socially categorized as quote-unquote black, despite their diverse ancestral backgrounds. Now that we understand the environmental and historical forces that shape this diversity, let's explore the incredible spectrum of skin tones found within the Niger-Congo lineage. But before we do that, I have an important announcement. This video introduces to the story behind the diverse skin colors of Niger-Congo lineage. But in my book, World Encyclopedia of African Peoples, I explore the topic of African anthropology in much greater depth. The book does not only examine the Niger-Congo lineage and its internal diversity, it also covers all major African-derived lineages from the oldest to the youngest, along with their internal diversity, and also the African descent communities that emerged during the Middle Ages, colonial era, and the global diaspora. In each chapter, I examine their genetic and ancestral backgrounds, histories and migrations, geographic distribution, phenotypic traits, languages and communication, traditional lifestyle and economies, cultural traits and customs, modern identity and diaspora, and much more to each and every African ethnic group. It's an eye-opening read full of knowledge and one of the best ways to discover the incredible diversity of your African brethren. The book is available on Amazon and purchasing it is the best way to support this channel. The link and more details are in description. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to today's topic. We will begin with a skin color that is not traditionally associated with the Niger-Congo lineage, fair skin. Fair skin roughly corresponding to a Van Lushan scale of 6 to 11. It is pale with a soft creamy pink undertone. Under bright sunlight, it can appear almost porcelain-like, reflecting far more light than the darker shades across the tropics. This complexion carries relatively low concentration of melanin, meaning protection against solar radiation is modest, and sunburn can occur easily, especially when untanned and exposed to tropical environments. Within the Niger-Congo lineage, this skin tone is not a product of long-term tropical adaptation. Among monoracial Niger-Congo people, it is primarily associated with albinism, a genetic condition that reduces or eliminates the normal production of melanin. In the wider diaspora, however, fair skin can also emerge through historical admixture. Today, it can be seen among a minority of Chesapeake freedmen Black Americans and Canadians, and among some white passing biracials and quadroon Black populations with European ancestry across Latin America and the world. A shade darker than fair skin is light brown. Light brown skin roughly corresponds to a Van Lushan scale of 12 to 17. It often carries subtle yellowish or pinkish undertones and can take on a warm glow under the sun. Melanin levels are higher than fair skin, providing greater protection against ultraviolet radiation while still allowing the skin to tan quite easily. This complexion represents another chapter in the interactions between ancestry and environment. It is commonly found among some mixed Niger-Congo phenotypes, a sizable minority of Chesapeakes of America and Canada, and among a minority mulatto communities throughout Latin America, especially certain light-skinned Dominicans who selectively procreate to enhance their trait through a phenomenon known as moherar la raza. In more recent times, it has also become common among some biracial and quadroon Black populations across the Anglosphere and Northern Europe. A shade darker than light brown is medium brown. Medium brown skin corresponds roughly to a Van Lushan scale of 18 to 23. It stands between the lighter and the darker ends of the human spectrum, often displaying olive or yellowish hues among admixed populations and a warm copper tone among many monoracial Niger-Congo groups. This is the lightest skin color that Niger-Congo populations can naturally develop without interracial admixture. This pigmentation tells the story of landscapes where the tropical sun is softened by mountain climates, dense forest, cloud cover, and humidity. In these environments, natural selection placed less pressure on extremely dark pigmentation. while still maintaining strong protection against ultraviolet radiation. Medium brown skin rarely burns and can turn easily into darker shades. Historically, this complexion appears among a sizable minority of Igbo, Yoruba, and Bini populations, who possess the xantha skinny seed phenotype. In southern Africa, it can be seen among a sizable minority within the Zulu, Swazi, Baka, Fengo, Pondo, Chopi, and Swana communities. It also appears among monoracial Niger-Congo individuals with rufous albinism, a condition that may produce reddish-brown skin, colored eyes, and ginger to brown hair. And now, across admixed Niger-Congo populations of Africa, this shade can be found among some Fulanis, some Black Tuaregs, several Mount Kenya Bantu groups such as the Kikuyus, Merus, Embos, and Kambas, and among Swahili Bantu communities, including the Bajunis, Mvitas, and Amos, to name a few. And in southern Africa, it is common among the Xhosas, southern Sothos, and Shangana people. It is also common among the KwaZulu-Natal colored community. And in Madagascar, it is common among the Malagasy groups such as the Sihanaka, Betsileo, Betsimaraka, and Sakalava. And in North Africa, it is common among Gnawa, Moroccan Haratin, Algerian Shaushan, and Tunisian Stambali. It is also common among Luso-Africans of Cape Verde and Angola. In the Americas, it is commonly found among freedmen Black Americans and Black Canadians with the Chesapeake phenotype, and also among freedmen Native Americans, including Black Cherokees. It is also common among mulatto, Pardo, and Zamba populations across Latin America and the Caribbean. Beyond the Atlantic world, it also appears among Afro-Arab communities, Afro-Turk communities, Afro-Iranian communities, and also among the Sindhi communities of India and Pakistan. A shade deeper than medium brown is dark brown, the classic complexion of the tropical world, often mistakenly referred to as simply quote-unquote black. In reality, this is one of humanity's great tropical adaptation. Dark brown skin roughly corresponds to a Van Lushan scale of 24 to 29. Under sunlight, it carries a rich earthy warmth that ranges from deep walnut to polished mahogany. It contains high concentrations of eumelanin, creating a natural shield against intense ultraviolet radiation while still allowing subtle variations in undertone from one population to another. This skin color was shaped over thousands of years beneath the powerful sun of the tropics, from the open savannas to the dense rainforest and even the dry landscapes of southern Africa. For the Niger-Congo lineage, this is the default complexion. It is the skin tone that dominates most monoracial/homogeneous Niger-Congo populations across Africa and remains widespread among many mixed populations and the Niger-Congo diaspora communities around the world. This pigmentation, it is found in the majority among Bantu-speaking peoples, where it is common in both mixed and monoracial Bantu communities. It is also the dominant complexion among the Volta Niger peoples of West Africa, particularly the Yoruba and the Igbo, the Kwa peoples of the Gulf of Guinea, including the Akan and Iwi, and among the Mande populations of the Upper Niger Basin, such as the Mandinka, Bambara, and Soninke. Outside Africa, this skin color is common among Mississippi freedmen Black Americans and remains a sizable minority among many mulatto, Pardo, and Zambo communities throughout the Americas. Beyond the Atlantic world, it also remains a dominant complexion among many Niger-Congo diaspora living in West and South Asia. Finally, we arrive at black skin, the darkest naturally occurring complexion within the Niger-Congo lineage. This skin tone is relatively uncommon, not because it belongs to one particular people, but because only certain environments create the evolutionary conditions that favor such dense pigmentation. Black skin roughly corresponds to a Van Lushan scale of 30 to 36. Under bright sunlight, it may display a subtle bluish undertone, almost like polished volcanic stone. This effect is created by extreme high concentrations of eumelanin, making it one of nature's most powerful defenses against intense ultraviolet radiation. This complexion was shaped in some of the harshest tropical environments on Earth. Unlike the humid forest of the equatorial belt, where cloud cover and dense vegetation soften the sun's impact, this skin tone is more commonly associated with the dry savannas and open landscapes, where the sun burns throughout the day with little natural shelter. Among the Niger-Congo lineage, this deeply pigmented phenotype reaches some of its highest frequencies within the Atlantic and Mande branches of West Africa's Sahel and Senegambia. This includes populations such as the Wolof, Serer, Jola, Jole-Felupe, Diamante, and Northern Malinke. It is also well represented among the Gur and Senufo clusters of the West African interior, including groups such as the Mosi, Lobi, Dagaba, Senufo, and Goronzi. Moving further south, this complexion appears among several Bantu populations occupying the northern reaches of southern Africa. It can be found among groups such as the Songa, Tonga, Kunda, and Venda, alongside central southwestern communities including the Mbundu and the Nyungwe of the Zambezi Valley. The story of this pigmentation also reflects centuries of interaction between neighboring people. Along the northern and central borderlands of Africa, where Niger-Congo and Nilo-Saharan populations historically met and exchanged genes and cultures, this deep complexion became especially pronounced. Well-known examples include the Azande of the Central African Ubangi region and various Kordofanian peoples living in the Nuba Mountains of Sudan. Taken together, these skin colors reveal that the Niger-Congo lineage cannot be reduced to a single appearance. This lineage preserves one of the richest spectrum of human pigmentation found anywhere on Earth. Every shade tells a story of ancestors adapting to different climates, crossing forests and savannas, climbing mountains, settling islands, and eventually spreading across the world. These colors are not random. They are living records of geography, evolution, and human history. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this exploration, be sure to check out my previous videos about the Niger-Congo peoples and their incredible diversity. And as always, stay curious, stay smart, and thank you very much for watching.